right. Oh, Max, can you get the slides up? Oh, okay. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another webinar from XL, makers of Tiggzi. Today, we're going to be discussing the new Windows 8 features in Tiggzi the support we've added as part of the rollout that has occurred for Windows 8. Your presenter today, the main presenter will be Max Katz, who's responsible for developer relations for Tiggzi. And my name's Charlie Collins. I guess my current title is Marketing Manager. Basically, I'll help Max with this for this webinar. Here are just a few housekeeping details. This webinar will be recorded. Everyone who registers for the webinar will get a follow-up email with a link to the recording. That's just part of the way GoToMeeting works. But we also take that recording and put it up on YouTube as part of our Tiggzi channel. So and you'll be informed about the location for that too. Another detail is we're hoping to, we don't want to go longer than about 15 minutes for this so that there'll be time for Q&A at the end. And that's one of my roles here, is just to tell Max how much time he has left till Q&A. And also you should notice in your interface there, for GoToMeeting, GoToWebinar, there's a questions panel in your lower right corner. And that's where you can post questions and comments. You can actually ask questions. We're not going to really go through the questions till the end, but you can post questions whenever you want during the webinar, and then we'll just go through them at the end during that 10-minute period. So let's see, let's move on. So here's our agenda. First of all, I'll tell you just a very brief amount about XL, who are the makers of Tiggzi, the mobile app platform. And then we'll switch over to Max, where he'll do the main meat of this whole webinar, which is just showing you how the Tiggzi platform works, particularly in terms of the support for Windows 8. And then after that, we have we'll tell you the details of an exciting Tiggzi Windows 8 contest for building a Windows 8 app, and there are prizes. And then at the end of that, there'll be a 10-minute Q&A. Hopefully we'll have enough time. And just remember, if a question occurs to you later, or if your question doesn't quite get answered the way you expected it to get answered, one of the last slides that we leave up on the screen is Max's email address. And he always likes receiving email about Tiggzi. So you can always just send an email to him if for some reason you didn't have an opportunity to ask a question during this session. And finally, at the very bottom, you can see a promo code. This is how we'll keep you alert throughout the whole webinar. There'll be a promo code that we'll show in one of the slides where we talk about the contest for a 2-month subscription worth about $100. That's the pro version, right? Not the standard. Okay. So the highest level version of Tiggzi. So let's move on. Here quickly about XL. We're a mobile software development company. Mobile is our focus right now, but we actually do software development projects of many kinds. Mostly because the basic defining characteristic is that they're at an enterprise level. And so right now, the forefront of our activities is the Tiggzi platform and mobile professional services, but we also have recent history of working in rich UIs for web applications with JBoss Developer Studio, which we developed, and also Rich Spaces, which are currently under the JBoss Red Hat kind of rubric. We're privately owned. We're growing. We have lots of employees, and we're all over the world. And so now I'm going to turn it over to Max, who's going to tell you a little about Tiggzi, and then he's going to get into his demo. So take it away, Max.
Thank you, Charlie. Welcome, everyone. So let me give you a really quick overview of the Tiggzi platform. And what I'm going to do next is actually build a Windows 8 app for you. We'll actually run it on this laptop. So it's going to be actually a native app using some of the native features in Windows 8. But first, so Tiggzi is a cloud-based app platform. It has a number of components, as you can see. So the first one there is the app builder, basically where you build apps. So of course, today we're going to be looking at Windows 8, but you can also build HTML5 and jQuery mobile apps. And that's sort of the second icon below the app builder. You can also use Phonegap, right? So Phonegap is included in the project, and that means you get access to device APIs. So whatever Phonegap provides, you can use it in your app. So again, the app builder, look at it sort of IDE, running in the cloud. So moving to REST API icon. So how do you get data into your app? So using APIs. So there's a whole explosion of APIs happening. Everyone is exposing APIs from Twitter, sort of the obvious case, Facebook, Google, and so on, to U.S. government. So any API that's available out there, you can use in your app. And again, anything that's out there. Moving to backend services is, all these APIs are very nice, and they provide some specific functionality. But you also need to save data, your app data. For example, you're building a to-do app, and you need to save the data somewhere. So we provide these, mobile backend services that include a mobile cloud database where you can save your app data. You can create users, for example. Users can log into your app and so on. We also just launched push capability. So now you can actually push data or notifications, to the users that installed the app. And it's a server-side code. It's something we're working on, but you'll be able to actually write server-side code, and you'll be all connected to, to the cloud database and so on. So of course, the result is you get your mobile app, and it can be a phone app. It can also be a tablet app, and it can also be a Windows 8 app. All right, and sort of going on the Phonegap side a little bit. So again, you can build HTML5 app, which runs just in the browser, or Phonegap again, which is installed on the device for iOS or Android. All right, that was the quick introduction. And what I'm going to do now, I'm actually going to switch to Tiggzi, and I'm going to build an app for you. So give me a sec here to switch. All right, very good. So this is the app stage, and on this side, these are all the apps that I have created. But let's start with a new app. So we'll do webinar. All right. Now, to get to Windows 8 app, what you need to do is you need to click Create, more Create options. Because if you click Create, the first Create there, by default, is going to create the jQuery mobile app. And you can see right here it says Windows 8, all right, and gives you a nice graphic. And we're going to click Create. All right, so it's going to load our new builder. And those of you who have worked with Tiggzi before, this is our new HTML5 builder, meaning it's implemented entirely with just HTML5 JavaScript in CSS. All right, so this is the starting page. There are some links to docs, to videos, and so on. And let's open Home. All right, and this, of course, looks like a Windows 8 app page. All right, and let's first, what we can do is we can make it a little bit, there's a zoom feature, so we can make it a little bit smaller like this, all right? And let's add an extra row. So you can see there are 2 rows right now, but let's add an extra one. So type auto, and auto really means that it's going to adjust automatically to the content that we put inside, all right? I forgot to mention what app we're going to build, and the app that I'm going to build is going to be a Twitter search app. But what this really means is that we're going to connect to Twitter search API, right? And we can search basically anything, and we're going to get all the tweets that for the keyword that we enter, right? So let's get an input component. So input component on this side here, and just drag and drop it. Okay. Let's update it a little bit. First, select the component, and we're going to change its name in properties. And usually this is needed, so it's a little bit easier once you add services and so on, so the names make more sense. And also, I'm going to select the parent cell here, and I'm going to position it to the left. All right. Let's get a button component now. And we're going to do very similar. First, we're going to change this here. So search button like this, and we're going to rename this to just search. All right, and again, selecting the parent cell, and we're going to move it to this side. All right. So this is how it looks. Now what we can do is we can actually test the app right from here. And there is a test button, and it's going to look like this. All right. Now, I'm sure you noticed it says preview for Firefox. Actually, you can also run it in IE10. So anyhow, this is sort of how it looks. I mean, it doesn't do it. Again, this is the real app. In this area, we're going to put, here we go. In this area, we're going to put the grid where we're going to display all the tweets. So let's do that. First, actually, I'm going to put an outline of the page, and then make it very easy to navigate the page, because some of these components, they have sort of like act as containers. You put components inside. So use this, the breadcrumbs to make it easier for you to select the component that you need. All right. So let's change this to 160. All right. And now I'm going to put a grid component, and this is for layout. So the list view actually was kind of a looping component, because we're going to get multiple tweets, or in your case, it could be any data. And the grid component is for layout. So let's select the grid component, and let's make this auto. We'll add an extra row, and here we're going to change it to fraction format. It looks like this. All right, and in the first cell, I'm going to drop an image component. All right, this looks like this, and then let's resize the image. Now I know ahead of time the size it will send me, which is 48 by 48. So let's change it to 48 by 48. All right, and let's do also. I selected the parent container, and I'm going to put the start. And the last thing I want to do is I want to span the column. So you can see column span 1. I'm actually going to set it to 2. All right. Next, I'm going to add 2 label components, and that is going to be for Twitter username and then the tweet text itself. All right. So this is 1. And this is 2. So what I'm going to do here is, again, we're going to position it to the left, and also we change the column span. And same thing here. We're going to position it to the start, left-hand side, and span. Okay. The only other thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to delete this default text. All right, and it's going to look like this. Okay. So, I mean, hopefully this kind of gives you an idea. Of course, it can create multiple screens or pages or views, of course. But for us, the next step will be to get the data. And for that, we're going to define a REST service. So let's save. Let's go to create new service. And a REST service right here. I'm going to click create service. Okay, and this is the service editor. So of course, the most important thing is entering the URL, which is for Twitter. Okay, and again, I'm using Twitter, but as I mentioned before, any REST API out there you can use. And whether it's open API like this, right, doesn't require authentication, or any API that requires to send you any keys, or any API that requires OAuth2 authentication, you can use. Okay, The next step, once you define the URL, the next step is to define the input to the service. And for that, we're going to go to the Request tab. Now, in Twitter's case, it's Q, which stands for query. That's the only one required parameter. It has a bunch of optional parameters, but we're not going to worry about optional parameters. Click Add. Once we define the input parameters, we can test the service before adding it to the page, and we can sort of make sure that it works. So we go to Test, and we can enter any data. So, for example, HTML. Here we go, HTML5. Click Test. And this is the JSON that we get back from Twitter. A very nice feature in the new builder is that you can view it like this in sort of full page. You know, if you really need to look at the response. But yeah, this is the JSON that we get from Twitter. So the next step would be to create the service response, right? But we can actually do it automatically from here. And this is a very, very nice feature, is because it allows you to really add services really quickly. So automatically create service response based on the sample JSON. All right? And you can see a message here. The service response was created successfully. And if I go to response, you can see this is all I get back from Twitter. Now, you can of course do this by hand, but it would obviously take much longer, and also error prone. So we got the response. So let's save. So what we just did is that we defined the service, and of course the project can have any number of services. But what this really means here is that you defined a REST service. What we need to do next is we need to add the service to the page. Okay, and we can close the service. And we're back in our design view, and you can see there are two tabs here. One says design, and then data. So data, this is where we add the service to the page, and it's also where we bind the service to the page. So let's go to data, and you can see it says data source. So we can select service, and this is the service that we created. I'm going to click Add. We can rename this, so Twitter search. And so again, you can, of course, a page can have multiple services, so they will be all listed here. But what we're going to do next is we're going to edit mapping. So this is the service name, and this is basically the service instance name, right, on the page. So let's click Edit Mapping. Okay. And we are in our mapping editor, and you can see Q says request. This is the service input, and this is the page. Okay, and we can expand it. So this is the input component. So what I'm going to do is, what I want to do is take the value from the input component and map it to Q. So for that, you can actually do it either way. You can do it from this side or from this side. So let's take the input component. All right, and we got a connection. So very easy. If you need to write any JavaScript, you can click this button, and it will open a small editor where you can write JavaScript for the mapping. All right, so we're back here. This is it for the request. Let's go to response, and of course, we get a lot of data back from Twitter. Now, we're not going to, of course, display everything. But first, results. This is the collection of all the tweets. And because it's a collection of all the tweets, we're going to map it to the list component, all right? And that's going to give us this automatic looping feature. Let's expand. So we got the image component, we got the label. This is the Twitter username, and this is the Twitter the tweet text. So from user, we're going to map it just like this. And text, this is the tweet text. And finally, profile image URL right here. This is the image, so we're going to map it. Okay, so you can see you can map the actual component names. So for example, if I expand it, there are more attributes. For example, text and visible. So by default, it maps to text. But visible, for example, allows you to make the component visible on the page or not. So again, if you need to map to visible, you would need to expand it. But in general, you can, if you're mapping to text, then you can just map the actual component or to text as well. Either one will work. Well, we're almost done. The last step is we need to invoke the service. And for that, save. We're going to go to Design. And right here, we got Event tab. So let's open it. And you select the component here, right? But basically, we would like to invoke the search on button click. So we can select the component, which is right here. Or another option is if you click the component, well, actually, we select it automatically here, and we'll default to click event. Now, why is the click event? Because pretty much any event that you do on a button will be click. So that's why we default to click. But of course, you can select any other event if you need to. Last thing is that we need to select an action. And for example, there's run JavaScript, so that basically allows you to do anything you want. But in our particular case, we want to do invoke service, and this is what we're going to do. And then you can see this is the service instance, so like that. And you have to click this button, Add Event. Okay? And that's pretty much it. So let's save and click Test. All right, and you can see we got tweets which mention HTML5. All right. So this is fine. So what we built so far is basically an HTML5 mobile web app using some of the Windows 8 HTML components. But of course, you want to, if you want to submit an app to a store, there's some number of native features that you would like to add, and that's what we're going to do next. Of course, once you add native features, testing in the browser won't be possible. So we're going to add some of these features, and then we're going to actually export the app and open it in Visual Studio and launch it. And so this way, we'll be able to test the features. Okay? But the first thing we're going to do is we're going to add a search capability. So there is a sort of Windows 8 has a built-in search feature. So let's add that. And again, you'll see how it works. So back here, we're going to create new and extension and search extension right here. And we're going to create extension. All right, we're going to select the page. We're going to select the data source where data is coming from. We're going to select the input component, and then like this. All right, that's pretty simple. So this is, we added a native search capability. What we're going to do next is we would like to add a share capability. So basically in Windows 8, you can select a lot of elements and then share, right? Share, on Twitter, via email, or any other app that supports sharing. So let's do that. Come here, and we're going to open events. Select home, and select this, native event when data is requested, and then you say it's a share contract, right? And what happens is that it opens the JavaScript. Now, you obviously don't need to, sit and type JavaScript. So what I'm going to do is actually I'm going to copy and paste it, right? So let's copy back here and paste it, all right? So there's some, basic JavaScript that will support this sort of sharing. The only thing I do need to change is this list. So there is an idea of a list, and in my case, it's actually under a different name. So what we're going to do is actually, let's save it first, and then we're going to scroll, and you can see mine was called list view 1_3. You can change it, but this is fine for the name. So list view. So let's open the event for editing, and we're going to change this to list view. So list view 1_3. Okay, and then we can save. Okay, so we got the search capability. We got the share capability. And what we're going to do next is we're going to also add live style updates. Again, if you guys see in Windows 8 apps, there are these styles, which there's an option that they automatically update. So let's do that. We're going to go to Data, right? And we're going to select the our service and update live style. Okay, and there are a number of different tiles you can select, but the one that works well is this one. And the period is how often to update. Actually, we're going to make it 5 seconds. All right, and all right, very good. So again, as I said, we've added 3 things: the search capability, the share capability, and the live style update. So let's save. And again, as I said, obviously testing in the browser is not possible anymore because it requires, native uses some native APIs. And so for that, we're going to do is actually we're going to export. So you can export the project to as a Visual Studio project. And so that's what we're going to do. So let's click the button, and it's asking us to save. So let's do that. Okay, very good. So we got the file. Let's open it, and let's unzip it. Here we go. Very good. So this is, we got the project right here, and this is the project. And what we can do, we can select, this is the file that we want to open. So a quick way to do it is just right-click and select Open with Microsoft Visual Studio. All right. And basically, we can actually just test it right from here. Right. This is sort of the splash screen, but again, it can be changed. So you guys should see basically a black screen with an input. That's what we built. So let's type in HTML5. Oh, and here we go. We got the tweets, and if I scroll again, this is how it looks. Let's see the search capability. So what I mean by search is that right here. So this is sort of a native search feature, and basically what this means is that instead of entering data into the input component, you should be able to. You see the app is selected. You should be able to enter search item here, and the app should be able to give you results. So let's enter Windows 8, click search, and you can see that this was updated. Okay, so this is the native search capability that I was talking about. Let's now show you the share part. So you select a tweet, right? This is how you select it, and let's go. As you can see, these are some of the various programs you can share it with. You can email it, or you can just email it to the specific person. You can mail it. There are some apps that, again, support sharing capability, and of course, you can share it on Twitter. Right? So that's the sharing capability. And the last thing that we can look at is the lifestyle update. So let's exit. And so this is the app that I built. All right, so let's see, it should update this one right here. Hopefully you'll, oops, excuse me, let me go back. Let's wait. It's possible that there are just no new tweets. So let's give it a few more seconds. So basically, if you should see something like this, where where it updates. Let's see if this one updates. HTML5. Let's run it again.
Should have used cute cat video as your search term.
Cute cat, HTML5. Let's see, HTML5. Search. All right. Now let's see if this does it. Let me look. But what we can do is this actually pretty much, this is the end of the app. What we can actually do is we can break into, well, there are a few more slides we're going to do, but then we can break into Q&A, and then we can see why it's not updating. Any other term we should use?
Oh, well, hard to see. How about Twitter?
Twitter. All right.
The internet will explode if you type Twitter as a search term in Twitter.
I know. So let's try Twitter. Search. All right. Yeah, it says turn lifestyle off, so it is set up. All right, well, let's go back and see if let's go back here. Update. Yeah, so it's fine, 5 seconds.
Maybe make it shorter.
Yeah. Oh. Two. Well, I'll have to redeploy. But this is fine. We can figure out later why it's not auto-updating.
All right. Are there any other, before we even get into the contest, well, I guess you can just talk about any other new features.
Well, a couple, I guess we can. Let me,
you don't have to go in depth, but just to give a little more.
Okay, so this, we turned off, so let's turn again. Tweets from, let's turn this one on.
Well, is there anything about that you wanted to say about Snap View? That's another Windows 8 feature. Okay. All right.
All right. But that's okay. We'll figure out why it's not updating. But I do want to show you a couple of other things. Let me go back. Let me go back here. So, and you saw that I use, for example, I use Twitter search, and let's open it. Let's open it here, right? We got this Twitter. So as I said, you can use any service that's available on the internet. But I do want to show you. I mentioned backend services, and I do want to show you how that looks. So first of all, there is a button that takes you to your database, and so these are some of my collections. So for example. Right, and you can see a collection here. Now, what's really nice, actually, let me create a new collection. Let's go back to databases, and we'll call this Windows 8 DB create. All right, and we're going to create a new collection. So just call it to do, for example. And these are default columns. So what's really nice, you can define more columns. So for example, name. And you can even enter some simple data. So for example, register for Windows 8 contest. And we'll have more information just in a few minutes. And one more, build a Windows 8 app. Right? So what's really nice is that everything you do here is instantly exposed via REST. And in fact, you can see it says REST up here. And if you click, you'll get a little hint, and it shows you what the URL is. And you do need to provide this key and so on. And for example, for update and so on. So it's pretty handy. But you can take this URL and basically you can do what I did with Twitter. You enter the URL and you define the input parameters and run the test, and then you can automatically create a response. But at the beginning we mentioned it's a platform. So basically the app builder is aware what collections or databases I have created. Let me just show you how you can quickly generate services for what I just did. Let me go back here. So create new database services. And then you can select any of the collections. So the collection that I just created is Windows 8. And you can see it immediately shows you the actual collection. Now login, logout, signout, these are from user management. So these are by default will be in every collection. So there is built-in user management where you can, for example, create new users. Users can sign into your app and so on. But for example, let's say I want to generate, let's say I want to have create service and list service, right? So I'm going to click import selected services. And you can see it automatically generates the services for me, which is really, really nice. So this one is the list service, right? You can see it has the URL. Everything is set. Request parameters are set. Response is set. And all I can do, I can go to test and click test. And right away, I get the two items, which is really nice. I can also do the create, okay, and of course we're doing the post, but again, everything is set. Request is set, response is set, very easy. And then we can test, for example, get to FAQ, click test, and this indicates that an item was added. We got its ID, the date, but we can basically come back here, click to do, and this is what it is. All right, so it's a very neat feature. It allows you instantly to get all the services for your database, where again you don't need to manually enter anything. All right, let's yeah, for some reason these are not updating. But anyhow, I'll figure out why it's not, and we can do a post and figure this out, why it's not updating, all right? So, but let's go back. Let's go back to our to the slide deck for a second.
Okay, talk about the contest. This would also be a good time if you've been holding off on asking any questions, start posting your questions in the lower right panel.
So hopefully this picture makes more sense now. So you saw the app builder, right? Basically the ID running in the cloud. Again, in this specific webinar, I showed you Windows 8. And in the future webinars, we'll show you, jQuery mobile. REST APIs, we use Twitter. I showed you backend services. And we exported the app and we're able to run it on Windows 8 machine. There was a little glitch, but we'll figure this out. But this, you guys at least know this is real, a real app, right? Where things sometimes don't work. Having said that, I'm going to give it back to Charlie. He's going to talk a little bit about the contest, and then we're going to go into Q&A.
And you'll have a drink of water.
Yes.
All right. So as part of our Windows 8 rollout, our support for Windows 8, we also have we've created this contest, and you can see the URL right below there. That's just the URL for the general contest page. That'll give you all the information you need. And this is a screen cap just to highlight some of the features. First of all, everybody wants prizes. The basic idea is that you submit by these deadlines a link to your Windows app that's in the store itself, and then we And there are just certain requirements, like it should be built by Tiggzi, of course, because it's our contest, and it should use Tiggzi backend services in some way. And one critical thing is it doesn't have to be a totally new app. It can be a port of an existing app, or it can be a totally new app. But anyway, to the prizes. So there they are. We have some, it lists what's going to be given out. Basically, the devices, we have subscriptions, of course, which we can give out, but people really want to get devices. So here they are. We have some Microsoft Surfaces and some Dell XPS convertibles. And then, so moving along, and you'll have that URL in the last slide to get to the contest. All right, so here's a restatement of the steps. If you don't already have a Tiggzi account, you can sign up at Tiggzi, and then you can upgrade to a pro subscription using the promo code that I mentioned earlier that would keep your attention until now. And there it is up on the board. So I'll give you a little opportunity to write that down. Tiggzi Webinar Deck 12. All right, and that gives you 2 free months free at the pro level. And then you just follow our tutorials. We have a lot of them up on our website now, and we've moved a lot of them over to the new HTML file. And then also we have one about building a Windows 8 app. And do you have anything to add, Max, about the guiding people about the tutorials, or any?
Yeah, we've got a tutorial that shows how to build this
Twitter app. Yeah.
But I definitely recommend to sign up. I mean, you get 2 months free for the pro plan, and again, you can Windows 8, you can do jQuery mobile. So I would definitely use that offer.
And I think, is there a next slide? I think
next slide is to go to Q&A.
Oh, okay. And I just want to point out while we're on that slide, you can go to that slide. That's fine. That we are that page, the Windows 8 page, all has the link to the reservation form. So even if you don't have your app done, if you want to save your spot, you can go there and reserve a place. Just the email address and and your name. One thing to keep in mind that I think is important to stress about this contest is, for legal reasons, you have to have a U.S. mailing address in order to actually be part of this contest. So that's one drawback for it that I hope won't be a problem for a lot of people. So that's about it for the contest. So now we can go through some of the questions. My favorite question that we already answered is, I can repeat it though, is the session recorded? And yes, the session is recorded. And as I was pointing out before, we mail out the link later. It should be a link to both the GoToWebinar site and also to YouTube, where we post these things. And then I have a general question about future improvements in our Windows 8 support. Are there anything that are on the roadmap immediately that you didn't have a chance to show, or what's the general direction? Or is that something that's still being resolved?
It's still being resolved, but I think we're going to have more native support, so you can do it right within Tiggzi. So I mean, you can of course really build anything you want by exporting the app into Visual Source, and then really just of course writing anything and adding any native capabilities. But the goal is of course to add pretty much everything you can do from native support from Visual Studio into Tiggzi.
Okay, and do we have any plans to, if someone asked a question I didn't quite understand about slide gestures, or is there any?
Yeah, I guess I'm guessing if I understand the question correctly. So the question is, if how do we support slide gestures by the mobile app design? So that's sort of handled by the OS itself. So we don't have to really do anything. Now I'm using a laptop without touch support, so I've used a mouse. So there's a scroll bar at the end, so you can use that. And I believe if you move the mouse all the way to the right, it will move as well. So, but yeah, I mean, there are some differences between using a mouse with the laptop without touch support and using it on a tablet, for example. But I think either way, it's handled by the operating system.
Okay, and what about, we used to talk about supporting Blackberry in the future. Are we still planning on any kind of Blackberry support?
Yes, I mean, we're going to.
Oh, that's non-Windows 8 question.
Yeah, so we do have, I mean, there is a Blackberry not 10 support via Phonegap because you can export the app, for example, and then take it. So we have builds. We have actually binary builds for Android and iOS, but we do not have binary builds for Blackberry. So you could export the app as HTML5 and then take it to a service called Phonegap Build, and they support Blackberry.
Oh, okay.
So that's one option. So we do sort of indirectly support Blackberry, but not version 10. You know, version 10 is launching early next year, and you know, we're sort of going to kind of wait and see what happens. But to be really honest, we haven't been seeing a lot of support for Blackberry, and it's probably because a lot of people are waiting right now, kind of, for 10 at this point.
Now, what about if you have a developed app already? Is there any tips about getting it into Tiggzi to do further work on it?
Yeah, I mean, today there's no such option. It's something we will be adding in the future. But
the roadmap.
It's not today yet.
Okay, and then, here's someone who's asking you specifically. Hi, Max. About any recommendations you have for an editing environment, you know, after you've exported it, the VS project, and he specifically mentioned, you know, for adding eye candy, to go adding even more stuff. And do you have any recommendations?
Oh, I think something Visual Studio could be a good, tool. I mean, it is sort of developer-oriented.
Oh, okay. But that's something we'll look into anyway as part of.
Yeah, I think
as we get, because Windows 8 is something that's new for us. Too.
Yeah, it is new. I mean, it was really launched, you know, late October.
But as we develop more, you know, we'll pass along our recommendations as we have more real battlefield experience with doing this. Let's see. Okay. There's some compliments in there, but we're always glad to get compliments. Here's a question. Someone would, in a future demo, I think we're out of time to do it now, but this is someone who's interested in storing info to a local database. You were kind of showing the database services.
I showed the part where you do it from a service, but basically it's very similar to, the Twitter search. Now, the difference.
I guess he wants on not the opposite of what we were showing, not a back-end service, a cloud service, but a local database.
Oh, local. So there are two ways to do it, and I can actually. I guess I can switch really quickly and just kind of quickly show it. So when defining events, let me open the page. And when you define events, like for example, on this button, you can set local storage variables. So you can do it sort of from the wizard, but really what's happening, we're just using the browser API. The local storage set item, get item. So you can use this, but you can also use the API directly via run JavaScript. So you have input, you click a button, and you run the JavaScript.
Oh, and here's a question about our two separate deadlines. One thing to keep in mind for the contest is that if you apply by January 31st, it's a good idea because you're actually automatically entered into the next contest too. So the smartest thing to do is to maximize your chances for winning a prize in our contest is to get there, to put your application in by January 31st. There's someone who's mentioning a specific, this is an interesting idea. I don't know if we'll do it, but this person's suggesting putting up a tutorial where we would build a restaurant takeout app as an example. So we'll take that under advisement. That's an interesting idea. Here's a good question. Someone wants to know if they can, for our backend database, the Tiggzi database, can we actually import a CSV file into that database to get us started?
Yes, exactly. We support CSV files and we're adding JSON support. So if you got a database in CSV format or JSON format, or you export it from some other service or tool, you can, so again, CSV supported today, and we're adding JSON.
Okay, there's some questions if I don't answer your question, and part of it might be because I don't understand it, so you can always send an email to Max that explains in more detail what's going on. Here's something, let's see. is there any way to get images from a database and display in the app without having users logged in /session token? So I'm literally saying the question.
Yeah, there is no option right now to get the images without the user being logged in. Yeah, you do need to be logged in to get images. I mean, it's primarily for security. So.
Okay, and I know you probably can't answer this specifically, but in general, here's a question about here's a task, changing the pictures on the front page so they rotate in. Is that something that we support, or?
Pictures, I guess, which pictures?
Oh yeah, so that's probably something that he should ask you in more detail. But
yeah, I think it's I guess the question is what pictures. But you know, a lot of things. I mean, Tiggzi does a lot of things. You know, it makes it very easy to build the UI. You know, for Windows 8 or jQuery mobile apps. It makes it super easy to define REST services, and it makes it super easy to do data binding. But of course, it doesn't do everything, right? I mean, there is really no such tool out there. So whenever you're sort of, how do you do this? I mean, probably usually the answer is, JavaScript. I mean, the app is running in the browser, so you can use JavaScript to really customize it as much as you need. Okay. We're trying to add more and more tools to make it, easier and easier. But, there's obviously, in some cases, you do need to do some coding. And, again, JavaScript, HTML is the way to customize and add more features and capabilities to your app.
Oh, but just quickly, I have two more questions, and then we're going to have to shut things down. The person was asking about development environments for adding more to the project afterwards, specifically mentioned Dreamweaver. Is that something that people using?
Well, if you can export the app, and then if you can open it in Dreamweaver, then yeah, you should be able to just if you want to modify files.
And here's an interesting question: what exactly do you get in Tiggzi Pro? What makes Tiggzi Pro Pro?
Well, it's really just all the plans that we have, and we have really 3 plans, sort of kind of a free, standard, and pro. All the plans get all the features. The biggest difference in the number of apps you can build. And then the free plan allows you to build 1 app with 3 pages. The standard plan allows you to build 3 apps with any number of pages. And then Pro allows you to build 50 apps with any number of pages. So it's really up to the just the number of apps you can build.
Okay, and then so what about in terms of service? There's no real difference in terms of the support, right?
Support, yeah. So standards and Pro do get priority support.
Okay, so
but we answer all the questions.
In practice, everybody gets supported. Yeah. And then, here's a question about the apps that we created in Windows 8. Will they support Snap View?
Yes. So it didn't show it, but it does support the app that I built can support Snap View. Yes.
Okay. Well, and I'm going to have to shut things down. I'd like to thank everybody who took time out of their day to come to this. We hope that you learned a lot. And remember, hey, Max, why don't you put the slide up with your email address before we sign off? And, Max has an email. We have a full support service, of course, but because Max does a lot of our presentations, he's kind of a good point for, even if he can't address it, he'll find the person who will address it. And underneath, there's also the URL that takes you to our contest page. We want to stress that there are these prizes out there, so people just need to do their Windows 8 apps and claim them. And I'm going to do a few housekeeping things and then just shut everything down.